is what we've been looking for today. This is what is a test celebration today. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Let us rejoice and be glad in what? In today. Well, you say, well, fine, I'll accept that, but it's even deeper than that. We do not live today on the sense of where we're at. We live through the coloring that happens of all the days that are before us. And so if you're going to rejoice and be glad today, it will be because you rejoiced and was glad yesterday. And the fact was, you were tense and stressed out yesterday. You were frustrated and disgusted yesterday. You were short-tempered and you couldn't put up with people yesterday. The devil was working through your husband yesterday. The enemy was working through your children. The power of the enemy was there at people at work. You were in the midst of warfare. And if you were in warfare yesterday, that's where you are today. And if you are in the sense of stress and frustration, and this has been where you have been, when you get to the place that you want to get, you're still going to be in the middle of stress and frustration. Some people think, well, I'll be so glad when I get to my time of retirement. It's going to be as miserable as it is right now. It may be more miserable. Can you picture having him around the house all the time? Do you believe that all of a sudden he's going to be the communicating man who's going to sit there and listen and speak? No, I tell you that what you have is what you're going to have, except you come to God and say, God, set things right, set things in order in my life. If we cannot understand that this is the day that the Lord has made, and we're thinking tomorrow I'm going to be a better Christian, tomorrow I'm going to be stronger in the Lord, tomorrow I'm going to be more victorious, tomorrow I'm going to have more blessing, tomorrow I'm going to have a breakthrough, I want you to know today that if you can't get a breakthrough yesterday, what makes you think you're going to get a breakthrough today? You were saved yesterday, weren't you, most of you? You were born again, you read the scriptures, you believed God, you rebuked the devil, you claimed the scriptures, you walked in faith as best you know how, and yesterday was not too hot, was it? For a lot of us. You got to be careful, because whatever resonates in your past has a way of breaking into the present. I don't know how many people mistreated you, but if you had people that mistreated you yesterday, you're not sure of people today. And you can't even enjoy people today if people yesterday treated you bad, except the Holy Spirit is a divine teacher and tells you it's time to erase the blackboard and start all over again. You need God to help you to see that, because we draw more from yesterday than we think. It was yesterday that taught you to work hard. It was yesterday that taught you to sacrifice. It was yesterday that taught you not to trust people. It was yesterday that taught you that you had to stand up for yourself. It was yesterday that taught you a lot. And you're still living on the basis of what you learned yesterday and what you experienced yesterday, especially the yesterday since you've been saved. Because when we are saved, we come into another level to a degree, but so often we fail to understand that when I got saved as a baby. And I got saved in that moment, and I had nothing to offer. I had to know him as my Father. And in John we read that he said, little children, you know the Father, and he has forgiven you for his name's sake. You know him as the Father. You know him as the Father. But sometimes we act like we're the son and the daughter, and we haven't acted like the son and the daughter. We act more like the child that has to get to know the Father. Because if you haven't come to know the Father, then you've come to know the enemy. If you haven't come to know the Father, you've come to know the destroyer. If you haven't come to know the Father, you've come to know the thief. If you haven't come to know the Father, you've come to know battle. If you haven't come to know the Father, you've come to know confusion. If you haven't come to know the Father, you've come to know destruction. And if you know destruction yesterday, if you know this kind of bondage yesterday, it's feeding into your thoughts today. It's not easy to make a switch. Don't think that you can just read this and all of a sudden be a happy person. Don't think that you can just say, oh, well, yeah, that's the word. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be... I'm just going to be happy today. I was thinking about one service, and I was just preaching a good message like this. And it no more than was over, and I had an encounter with somebody that's very close to me, and I acted like I hadn't even been to church. I acted like I hadn't even heard the word, and I preached the word. Why? Because the next time you get angry is not your first time. The next time that you act in the way of stress is not your first time. That's not the whole problem. The problem is it's been what you've been doing day after day after day since you've been a Christian, since you've known the Lord, since you have been a believer. You have gone through this moment carrying over the fact that you have been bruised and hurt and broken. There's a woman who was coming in for counseling, and she weighed some 300 pounds. And she was speaking about the fact that nobody appreciated her at work, and nobody treated her well in her family. And she was sick and tired of the way that everybody was so hard to get along with. And the counselor, he just spoke to her month after month until finally that she would get to the point that was her real dilemma. And that was that she was overweight. This was her problem. This is the thing that bruised her, and she couldn't even talk about it. She couldn't even bring it up in counseling. And he knew in that moment that he, the counselor, couldn't bring it up because she wasn't ready for it. But everything else that she was bringing up was to mask the fact that she had a problem. She was overweight. She was terribly overweight. And it left her in that moment feeling so undone. And she couldn't get along with people at work. And she couldn't get along with people in her family. And until it was almost a year later that finally she broke down and she said, I know what my problem is. I'm overweight. And she began to address the problem, but she had to work through the problem all the way from her childhood. She had to see in that moment she was overweight at graduation, and she couldn't get anyone to go to the prom with her. She was overweight all the way through at different occasions, and it shut doors for her. She saw times of disappointment, and what she was feeling in this moment was not this moment, but she was feeling yesterday. I want to tell you, people, you got to get free from yesterday. If yesterday was not exciting, if it wasn't a day of joy, if it wasn't a day of victory, you got to get free from it because it's cropping up today. It's showing itself again today. It will manifest itself in the next argument. It will manifest itself in the next disappointment, but it's already been birthed in you. This is the day that the Lord has made, and I can't rejoice and be glad in it just because I read it. I need the Spirit of God to do something deep within me. I need God to cancel everything that's feeding from my past that is not ordained of God. I need God to close down every negativity that comes from the past. I've got to have God cause every coping with problems that I have had that succeeded, that wasn't what God wanted, to cease in this moment. I've got to realize that it is celebration time. Why do I have to celebrate today? Because at my age, and at your age much younger than me, if I cannot celebrate yet, then there is nothing